Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started momentarily. We want to make sure the Facebook Live is up and also that we're recording. Can you all see the presentation still?
Yes, we can. I don't see us on Facebook Live yet. Oh, there. Hold on. We're on Facebook Live now.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for participating in today's second round for our tree ordinance rewrite project. We'll go through a few slides and then open it up for public comment again, like we did at the last meeting. So today's outline will include, again, we'll go back over the purpose of the project website. We'll recap the public engagement meetings from last month and then review some of what we've heard so far based on what's been submitted through the public survey and the other portions of the project website. And then we'll talk about next steps for the project. Again, the purpose of this project is to ensure that the city is striking a balance with tree canopy management and new development within the city. We want to utilize and improve upon existing efforts that the city has already undertaken, and also foster management of some programming that our tree canopy preservation division will continue to work on. Again, for those of you who have not been to the project website yet, the link is here on this page, and you can also access that from the community development page on the city website. But it includes an ideas wall, a virtual forum, a community survey, which will be available through Monday, March 1st, an interactive map, and some details on the project timeline in general, frequently asked questions about the city's tree canopy program. So a recap of our January public engagement meetings. As with today, we held lunchtime and evening meetings. We had approximately 15 attendees between the two meetings. And some of the comments that we received related to, again, striking that balance between preservation and the allowance of tree removal, protecting tree stands using a holistic approach, establishing a value system to incorporate trees of different sizes, not just specimen trees as defined by the ordinance currently, and also additional public education needs. From the project website, what we've heard on the ideas wall is to allow for creative green spaces, including things like green roofs and walls, that the ordinance needs to be more user-friendly and easy to read for all members of the public, and to provide more public notification of approved tree removals. On the virtual forum, we've heard that we need to be thinking about quality over quantity. And the specific comment that we received related to that talked about making sure that we were looking at the types of trees that were being saved, rather just solely the number of trees. Other comments we received are to provide additional incentives for tree preservation, and then also to use good example. Druid Knoll Drive was one of the specific areas that was mentioned. So next steps, again, we launched the project website in the middle of January, had our first round of public engagement meetings at the end of the month. We today are holding the second round of public engagement meetings, and then we'll move into drafting the ordinance and then on to presenting the draft to the public and to Planning Commission and City Council later this year. And so that covers kind of the overview of where we're at right now with the project. Jeff and Linda, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we open it up to questions and comments from the public?
No, but India is in the attendees list if you want to bring her over in case she has anything.
There we go. Gotcha.
All right. Okay, yeah. So Jeff and India, was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we open it up to the public about where we're at with the project?
No, nothing really to touch on. Just a lot. I think a lot of good points and ideas came out of our first two sessions, and you know, the two we're having today. It's really more of the same. We're here to listen, and you know, anybody who's in on this meeting, this is your time to offer up anything that you feel like should be taken into consideration and considered as we move forward with rewriting our ordinance. So mostly you know, the format is just we're in listen mode on our side, and we're also here to answer any questions and discuss any concerns that anybody has.
Okay. Let's see. So if there's anyone that's in attendance that would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat or the Q&A. I do see in the Q&A, someone asked, will the new ordinance include pines in the definition of specimen trees such that they will be required for replacement in the event they are cut down? For example, pines of a certain age, diameter, type, or other criteria.
So I appreciate that question. It's a really good question. The short answer is yes. Pines will be included. There's really space for it. The code lists certain genre as recognized as species qualifiers, but it's not exclusive at the same time. So it's open to other genre that aren't listed in the current code, but absolutely. I would say it's rare to come across a large pine tree that conditionally meets the current definition and criteria for specimen trees, but what I will say is there seems to be a lot of stigma, unfounded stigma, a lot of misinformation about pine trees, particularly the 2 or 3 most common species we see around here that reach, a mature size that's comparable to that of oaks and sweet gums and tulip poplars, the loblolly pine and the shortleaf pine, and they're really good trees. First off, they don't have a lot of the nutritional and soil requirements that a lot of other native tree species have. They tend to bend, not break, which is what seems to be some misinformation regarding pine trees, is that they're the first types of trees to blow over in storms. That is categorically not true. Yes, trees of all species are pushed over from time to time. There are no exceptions to that rule. But if you ask any tree company that operates in the Atlanta area about, let's say, a company does 15 trees that were pushed over during a high wind speed storm, or they might tell you that out of 15, 1 of them was a pine, 2 of them were pines. So I think that genre absolutely, case by case scenario, has the potential to qualify to meet our specimen criteria.
Thanks, Jeff. We had another question come in. Is consideration being given to protecting, encouraging, and including our official city tree, cherry blossoms, even though they are not native because of the special role they have here in Brookhaven?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna take that, Jeff, if it's okay. I'm not sure if, cherry blossoms again, if they are a large enough species and they're healthy, we are looking at them as being considered as like a specialty tree. But I don't think that we have enough cherry blossoms to be considered where they will be considered trees that can be counted towards preservation per se. We want them to be managed better and saved if we can, but I don't know that they are if they're going to be included on like a priority specimen tree list or anything like that.
I would agree with India. It's a fine ornamental tree, and we recognize that it is the official tree of Brookhaven, Georgia. But it's a tree that doesn't meet some of our other requirements, especially for replanting. It's not an overstory tree. They rarely reach a max size where you could reasonably call them a shade tree. They tend to be short-lived, and they're highly intolerant of any level of shade. And you have some other aesthetic issues with cherry trees. So yes, in certain situations, as it comes up, they'll be factored into preservation measures, but it's also not a tree that we're actively gonna emphasize on our approved list for replacements in the new ordinance.
Okay. The next question is, what steps do you think we should take to keep alternative compliance, the alternative compliance provision in our current ordinance from being used unless there is an exceptional need?
I think one of the things with the alternative compliance is you have to show that you can't meet the regular compliance measures before we even address that. So the same thing will be in our updated ordinance. It's you have to prove that you cannot meet the requirement for preservation by any other means before we go to alternative compliance. It is the last measure that we'll be using to help a construction project meet the requirement for preservation, not for preservation if they don't meet preservation, but replacement. And it is the last method that we'll use. It is not the first, and it will not change in our updated ordinance. You have any ideas on that, Jeff?
No, India said it well. It's I'll say this. I'm speaking from in India for Brook. Neither of us have been here a long time, but that said, we've done enough plan review to where I feel pretty confident in saying that it's rare. It's a rare case for any type of site, whether you're referring to a commercial site or a single family residential lot, where the full extent of alternative compliance is used. Very rare. In fact, I can only think off the top of my head of one site that clearly that was the measure taken by the homeowner. So again, you get back into that the balance phraseology, and that seems to be the more common approach, where you kind of have two things going on. You have to meet your minimum tree density requirement, but then you also have recompense for any specimen trees that were removed on a site. So what the alternative compliance is referring to is just the specimen tree recompense. There's no deviation from minimum density being preserved and or replaced on a lot, whether it's a commercial lot or a single family residential lot. There's no deviation from that. That's minimum density. It is an absolute requirement before the CO is issued by the city. So typically with, alternative compliance, really what that's translating into is that the builder or the homeowner is opting to not recoup any specimen inches removed by way of replacements with new trees. They're opting to, basically recompense the full amount by way of paying into the tree fund. And that's like I said, it's a very rare. I haven't seen that particular measure used pretty much at all. It's typically a combination, but oftentimes all those inches are recouped with what the code requires in terms of replacements.
Okay, so I don't have any additional, oh no, one more comment. It says, please raise charged on money charged for fines. And if I can just jump in on that answer, the maximum amount that the if it ends up in the municipal court is set by the city charter. is not set by the department, so that $1,000 per day per violation is not set by the department. The recompense amounts, and so I don't, it's on those requirements. Okay, I think I cut out a little bit. Did anyone respond, or did you all hear the question or comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Patrice, did you see there's another question? Can we get the permit posted at the property site so we do not have to submit a connect request?
Permit for tree removal?
Basically posting the tree removal permit so citizens know, I'm taking that as citizens know that trees are being removed on that site so they don't have to call the city with concerns or submit something through our system.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I think that's a really good idea. So the way it is now, there is a paper copy, a hard copy of an issued tree removal permit. The tree removal contractor is required to have in hand the day or days they are doing the work. Most of the companies who do work around here know this, but that is something we run into often. And typically what's associated with our field inspectors coming up on a contractor who has not been issued a permit, therefore is, culpable of unpermitted tree removals, or they don't have the hard copy in hand, or the homeowner did it and the homeowner didn't turn it over to the contractor. This would be an easy way to kind of address all three of those items, whether it's just inefficiencies in the system where you have to call somebody to verify that a permit has in fact been issued, or to, only find out about illegal removals that are occurring by way of observant, citizens who think that might be going on, that might be what they're seeing. So yes, just like a building permit or anything else, to just have that posted, not just a paper copy, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that's folded up in somebody's glove box. I think that's a really good idea.
It looks like Patrice's Wi-Fi is giving her some problems, so until she jumps back on. We did have another question from Sandy Murray. Would you consider a tree conservation commission to hear appeals from neighbors before a tree removal permit is granted? And I will kind of jump in and say, I think everything is on the table right now and we're taking that information in. So I wouldn't say no, but if Jeff and India or Patrice have anything that they wanted to add to that, I will let them go.
I think, we are making the ordinance where homeowners in respecting private property requirements. I wouldn't want to have a tree removal commission approve a tree from someone's private property, especially if there's no construction process that's going on. That's one of the reasons that we have the ordinance in place. I think having in moving forward, a tree board would be wonderful to assist with answering questions. Unlike the city of Atlanta, city of Brookhaven, I don't think we need to have a commission. But that's just my opinion right now. As you said, Linda, everything's on the table. I just don't see that where it would benefit our city canopy preservation or help it to grow any for individual property owners, not construction related tree removal.
And I'll just piggyback on what India said. The department's approach with the addition of various commissions and things has been to keep that minimized and make sure that we're having ordinances that address the concerns of the community. So if we can get a really strong ordinance, then there really is not a need for a commission. We went through that same consideration process as it related to a design review board a few years ago. And again, the focus was really on making sure that the ordinance was strong so that we did not have to then engage a whole new commission.
I think that sometimes it's good to take a step back and try to look at a slightly bigger version of something that's symptomatic of there. So I'm not wording this well, but here's where I'm going with this. You wouldn't believe how many tree removal permits come through our system for Indiana's review, where the tree or trees are associated with lots that are, basically the house is 5 years or younger. It's a new house. So what's really going on there? Those trees are getting the protection during construction is insufficient, and they were impacted to the point of decline and eventual death during construction. Oftentimes, it's not readily apparent when the CO is issued during site final inspection. So if you take a step back, I would say a better approach, rather than having to go through, a special committee for, a certain portion of tree removal permits that come through the system, is how can we improve what's going on with the current level of tree protection, or really lack thereof, on a lot of these new build sites. India, just could you ballpark it? What percentage of tree removal permits are essentially coming from homeowners who are on the hook with their new house for dead or declining trees that were clearly impacted to the point of no return during construction?
I mean, I have to say, since I've been here, so the beginning of December until now, I can say 20% of the tree permits that I've reviewed directly have are asking for tree removal based on impacts from construction within the first 5 years. Either the trees were not healthy enough to stay saved during the construction process, and they saved them anyway, or they were impacted, had significant impact during construction, and then they went into decline. And within the first 5 years, you will start to see the decline of most trees if they have construction impact. So again, about 20% of the tree removal permits that I review are because of are within the first 5 years of home ownership. And just going back a little bit, that's one of the reasons we're requiring, or we hope to include in our update in our ordinance, to have the trees have a basic assessment, health assessment, before they can say that they're going to be safe trees. And then that way the homeowner will not be on the hook for bad trees that are too old, neglected anyway, and then have to try to come back after the fact and have them removed. But we're gonna start from the beginning with it now, so hopefully that number will continue to decline in the future with our new, in our ordinance update.
And for trees that do meet the preservation standard, to improve the protection during construction.
Yeah.
You know, it's as easy as, you know, if density credit is awarded for that tree needs to be protected to the point where it's growing and thriving 3 years later, not in severe.
Yeah.
Patrice, are you good?
Yep, I am. Sorry about that. My internet is going crazy right now. So 2 follow-up questions to that. I think they kind of relate to each other. One was if we don't have a commission, how do citizens know about a tree removal permit before the tree cutters show up? And then the second question is, how about larger signs for permitted tree removal? So I'll just say there are 2 different things that we already have in place that could potentially be beefed up a little bit. We do have our project portal viewer available on the website that will show all permitted, really permitted building and land development permits for the last, that have been issued in the last 30 days. We've also included tree removal permits for the last 60 days. And then as Jeff mentioned, each project has a sign or permit that has to be posted before the tree removal is shown, tree removal trucks show up. So we have things in place right now, but yes, they could be enhanced, I think, so. Let's see. So then the next question is, which city department is responsible for enforcement of the tree ordinance, and is it fully staffed? And so the department that is responsible is the Community Development Department. With Jeff and India joining our team, we have created a separate tree canopy preservation division. And so that division is fully staffed. But we also have our code enforcement division that provides support citywide for all code requirements. And so in addition to Jeff and India and their administrative support, code enforcement has a staff of 5 that also is available to address tree ordinance requirements.
And Patrice, just to jump on that, we do have 3 land development inspectors, 2 of which are certified arborists or have their arborist certification. Oh, did Dee get hers? I know one was working on it. So we actually have 3. So in the land development division as well.
So that makes 5 arborists on our staff. So let's see. So the next question. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, you know, that said, it is helpful if a citizen thinks they're seeing an illegal tree removal. It is helpful. You know, we do respond, whether it's the arborist division or code enforcement. We do respond. We do verify the issuance of a permit or lack thereof, and you know, we take action accordingly. So, but you know, like back to the original idea that somebody put out there earlier, I think just having something posted, it's not a tall order to go from you have to have this paper copy permit in hand day of work to give them us, slightly bigger format or something that they can actually stake out in the yard while they're doing the work, just to more easily communicate that to everybody.
Okay, and so the next comment and question is, I would like to see the city practice tree restoration for all projects, especially stormwater remediation, water and sewer transportation, and right-of-way projects. Currently, sod is put down, which increases stormwater runoff. Can we change the city policy to make these practices standard?
I don't know if I would fully agree with the statement that sod increases stormwater runoff. Now, I will say that, especially with Bermuda sod, I've seen a lot of Bermuda installed in my life, and they will sometimes, some of these crews will put plate compactors on that clay before they put the sod down. So is it completely impervious? No, but is it completely pervious? No. So it's somewhere in the middle there. But back to your bigger point, I think that's something we need to figure out a way to quantify, codify in the new code, is relating tree preservation and or replacement to stormwater mitigation, because it's in the Georgia State Stormwater Manual. There's data backing the stormwater mitigative qualities of trees on the site.
And we do have a recent article that was put out by Jefferson, the city of Jefferson, to the American Public Works Association, documenting stormwater quantitatively and qualitatively, how trees helped in stormwater. So if the American Public Works Association can publish their research from an arborist from the city of Jefferson, I think that we all know that it's there. It's just bringing everyone together to understand just how important tree planting and other vegetative measures, how important it is for stormwater mitigation as well. So it is a part, we do have it already, a part of what we do. But I think it's just, we need to expand it a little bit.
In jurisdictions where you have like a stormwater fee structure, like I moved here from Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a stormwater fee structure based on different features of your landscape beyond just pervious versus impervious. If you have that fee structure already in place, it's very easy to create incentives for builders and land developers for tree preservation, because you attach the data that's already there with the mitigative qualities of different size trees, different species trees, proximity to impervious surfaces. And you can codify it, and you can pretty easily make that part of your code. We don't have that stormwater fee structure here in Brookhaven, so to figure out a way to incorporate that, I feel like is definitely something that's needs to be considered with the rewrite. It's just you gotta find a way to quantify it and codify it to create an incentive.
And the city of Davy Tree also has a tool that shows what a tree, a certain size and species of tree, can offer to your property. And it's online, it's free, monetarily. How much stormwater does it help with? How much money it saves you with shade and electricity? So that is a tool that we are also, hopefully, we will be able to add to our website, just so that individuals can see that, and we're going to be sharing it with the developers as well. It's a free calculator from Davy Tree.
Okay.
Did that answer that question? Sorry, I want to make sure we sufficiently answered that person's question.
I think it did, and I think really it's just that, again, this is an open process and we're taking all these comments in, and we'll incorporate as much as we can into the draft, when considering everything together, so. The next question was, when do you go on site versus just issuing a permit to evaluate what is really being requested?
We walked the site with a builder just this morning, and I think India and I are in complete agreement that wherever and whenever possible, that's absolutely something that should be done before the first site plan is ever submitted for review. I've done that with a handful of builders who do a lot of building here in Brookhaven, and with pretty good results. For me, it seems to be two things. There has to be willingness from the builder, which typically there seems to be. But then you have to have the manpower to do it. I'll be honest with you, the way things are right now, I don't think it's realistic for India and I to always be able to do that. There's just too many building permits that are coming through the system at any one time. But it's absolutely something that we've been able to do more of, just because the workload for the first time in the history of Brookhaven has been, divided by two. I can't even fathom, what this job would be like if it was just me or just India. So to just be able to divide the workload into two, I think has produced some really good things. And that's something that India and I, in our short time here, have emphasized with builders, and we've tried to make ourselves available, as have the builders. Credit to most of them, especially the ones who do a lot of business here.
And we also do the land development inspectors before a project gets started, do visit the site to make sure erosion controls are put in, tree protection fences put in before any dirt is removed. So there is a catch there. If something was misrepresented on the site plan, we do have kind of a backup system to catch that before anything gets removed on the site as well.
And our site inspectors, they've already been brought up that all three of them are certified arborists, and they know their stuff, and they're very good about communicating things back to whichever division within community development might need to be made aware of anything.
Okay, and the next question is regarding observation of illegal tree removal. Should we use Brookhaven Connect or call? And if it's a call, what phone number? I would say that if it is work that's being done right then, please call the main city number 404-637-0500. Depending on the situation and where staff is right at that moment, someone other than Jeff or India may have to go out to the site. I know I've done that a few times where, it was later in the day and they may have been on site or gone for the day, and I've had to go out to deal with a tree removal that wasn't permitted. So please always, if it's immediate and taking place right then, please call the main city number. If it's evening or weekend, you can email to the trees@brookhavenga.gov email address, but please also submit that to Brookhaven Connect. And you can also call the police department. They will at least come out and just document that the group was there, even if there isn't anything that they can necessarily do right in that moment. But our code enforcement division we'll gather that information from the police department and then provide that back to Jeff and India so we can do a follow-up during regular business hours. The next question is, the new ordinances are so beneficial to our community and to the planet. Is anybody pushing back? And if yes, what are they saying? And so I don't think that I've seen any negative comments about the tree ordinance rewrite. I think a lot of people have ideas and are providing them to us. And like we said, the public survey will be available through Monday. So we'll continue to look forward to the additional comments we get between now and then. Jeff, India, Linda, have you all seen any pushback or anything?
No, I haven't.
I think you have some general concerns just because it's, there's chatter about a change in the land development code. But in terms of just sheer pushback, haven't seen it.
Good. And so let's see, the next comment is the term specimen tree in our current ordinance doesn't cover all significant or best trees. Consider using another term that measures high value trees with type, age, DBH, health, and provide tools to citizens. Also, please require total inches replacement of any high value trees removed on the property from where it is removed.
Yeah.
Right now, the way that our ordinance is worded, and I think it will continue, is that the wording in our current ordinance is just, it's a guideline. It's very basic, but it allows us as arborists, as the city's arborists, to make the decision of whether or not a tree should be considered a specimen tree or high value tree based on its location and its the standard that it's in, its age, its rarity in the city. So we have that authority to do that, and we have used that already. We currently use that, even though it's not named per se. All the species are not named as specimen trees in our ordinance. So we'll continue to do that. And I do understand, and Jeff and I have both talked about this, not liking the word, it's not the best word to use. I do like high value trees as well, because it's not just the value of the tree for its size, it's the value of what it's actually doing for the environment that it's located in. So yeah. Each property, it could be a high value for this property per se because of it being in a lower area and it's able to do more for water quality or whatever. So we had already discussed adjusting the term that we want to use for the specimen trees in the ordinance. And sometimes, honestly, you're just not able to replace everything on the property. The way that the properties were built 50 years ago, or houses were built 50 years ago, they were smaller. The buildable area was never utilized totally. And right now, almost every square foot of the buildable area is utilized. And plus we have other things that are added during the building process, like water quality. People put in water quality devices now for water quality instead of it being across the surface flow. So we would not have the opportunity to plant everything back on a property, even if they were able to, unless they had a lot of land. But it's not feasible for all lots, especially within the city of Brookhaven, for every inch to be planted back on the site. We asked for landscape plans to plant the maximum amount of trees available, and then try to meet the spirit of the ordinance, and then the remainder can come into our tree fund. And that's why we have the tree fund available.
You have to, it's, you have a little bit of a dichotomy going on. You have to have a code that keeps things consistent and establishes the baseline requirements for everything, not just for trees, for everything, stormwater, building code, planning and zoning, all that. But then you have the no site is just like any other site part of the equation too. And that's true. Every site is unique. And that's for all those components of land development as well. I would say, especially with, you know, the things that, you know, are part of the ecosystem. So your stormwater and your tree. So I think that's a good point in that maybe there's a little bit too much, and I completely agree with the terminology. I know Indy already said that specimen tree to me comes off as a little esoteric, whereas high value, it's a little more technical. All those quantifiers that you can attach to the preservation of this tree or that tree or whatever, or stand of trees and the soil that comes along with that, all those things can be quantified. And I just feel like high value is a better term that kind of captures all that. But it's case by case, you know. Sometimes it makes more sense to, if we do continue to have the ability to walk more sites pre-planning with the builders and the developers, you can go a long way, because sometimes it makes more sense to preserve a 6-inch beech tree growing underneath a 20-inch red oak than it does this big standalone 33-inch water oak in the middle of the yard. So it's kind of like both those things. You have to draft your code in a way that allows the space and establishes the baseline to kind of, that's your platform for navigating the uniqueness of each site.
Okay, so that looks like we covered all of the questions in the Q&A. I do see a couple of questions on Facebook. And so the first one is, how do we stop certain home builders who clear cut lots?
So
I think
go ahead.
one of the things is, as we are coming in and interpreting the ordinance the best that we can to improve our canopy, we're also responsible for teaching the builders and all of the developers here in the city of Brookhaven what those ordinance, what it means. So right now, with our update, the update of our ordinance and the interpretation of how we're interpreting the ordinance, how it comes through, we're responsible for teaching them. And they are not going to be allowed to clear cut the lots, but we are responsible for telling them what they can and can't do, and what we're gonna hold, what ordinances we're gonna hold them to. And that's how that's gonna end. We're gonna end that. Please know that if you see a lot of trees from being removed, understand that we've gone through a lot of different avenues of, are these trees worth saving? Are these invasive species? Will they survive the construction process? I don't think everyone understands that if we allow some removals, that we've looked at a lot of different things to verify that these trees are not, they're not going to be viable after the construction process, and we can't keep them from developing their property. We do, that's when alternative compliance can come back in, things like that. But clear cutting the lots is a thing of the past. And I think it's because we do have a new group of Jeff and myself who are interpreting the ordinance to the best of our ability to improve our canopy. And it's not just the builders, I hold myself responsible for what happens, what these builders are doing out there. So the more that we educate ourselves, the better our ordinance is, the less you're gonna see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the realistic way to manage, especially single family residential, which if you distill it down to the core issue for tree management in Brookhaven, it really that's the core. It's the single family residential lots. It's where the majority of Brookhaven's canopy exists. And it's where the majority of land development is going on. So you've got lot sizes that aren't changing. You have buildable limits and building envelopes that are expanding greatly within that lot size that's not changing. And I think it's important for people to understand that if there are trees within, let's say, 15, 20-foot proximity of the existing structure that's getting demolished and built out into a bigger structure, those it's impossible to preserve those trees. You can't do it. They're within the allowable, building envelope of what's being built on that site. And people do have a constitutional right to utilize their property. And that new allowable buildable space is, falls squarely within that constitutional right to utilize their property. So you have to figure out where the focus should be, and the focus should be trees in the front and out towards the street, and trees in the back. So, trees that aren't, right near the existing structure and right along the edges of the building envelope for the proposed new structure. Once you factor in impact on ones that are just outside of the building envelope and all that stuff, it's just not a viable option. In edge trees, it's not just that these isolated lots, one here is being torn down and rebuilt with an expanded envelope, but the two other houses on each side of that lot are going to remain these nice, tiny little ranch style 1950s, 1960s size homes. They're getting torn down and rebuilt too. So you've got this edge is getting pushed out. This edge is getting pushed out. Those trees in between it's real tricky to navigate preservation of those trees. It can be done, and future homeowners for custom builds or builders are oftentimes required to preserve a tree if it's just on the other side of that property line, or are willing to and would like to try to keep some of those edge trees. But it's very difficult to pull off when you factor in the biological requirements of what that tree needs to continue to live and be well. So that's where the focus is. It's more like, let's really focus on the existing trees on each and every one of these lots. And again, it's case by case. Every lot is unique. Where preservation is and should be, the approach.
Okay. The next question on Facebook was, how can we modify town plans and public areas that went through public review 4 to 5 years ago to address and comply with current code and current public sentiment, such as the Murphy Candler Park work? For specific projects, such as parks, the best approach would be either to reach out to the Parks and Recreation Department or to your city council person, especially since it is an adopted plan by the city council. That would be your best source of being able to make comment or suggestions on existing plans that the city has adopted. Tom Riley on Facebook asks, what percentage of Brookhaven is tree canopy? And I don't have that number off the top of my head. I know that it's in our tree canopy study that was done last year. And I want to say it's in the high 40%. It's not quite 50%, but we can pull that number, Tom, and send it to you. And then the last question that we have on Facebook is, can Brookhaven adjust the buildable space within a certain size lot. And so I think the response for that is, yes, the city obviously always has the ability to modify zoning ordinances to address buildable area. The city did just go through a full zoning ordinance rewrite, which was adopted in 2018. So for now, it's not likely that we would do any major overhaul related to buildable area.
To kind of piggyback off that for a minute,
Mhm.
there is, you know, we've spoken with planning and zoning about, you know, the option to have an administrative variance for a setback to be reduced or expanded on one side of the lot, to build around a tree to be preserved. So I think that's maybe the middle ground to that question. Is absolutely, we've come across a few building permits recently where that is exactly what in this case, the homeowners wanted to do. They own the current property and home, but they were doing some major renovation work or just a tear down rebuild on their own lot. And they were glad to hear that there was an option to get a setback variance to build around that could be preserved.
And that setback reduction, as it's stated in the ordinance, is like 25%. That sounds like a lot, but it's only like 3 feet that would take the footprint of the house out of the structural roof plate and make it
For
so
edge
that
trees.
yeah, for edge trees.
For edge trees.
That would, and it would help save that nice tree. So it is something that we're looking at.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, especially for these edge trees, edge, I guess would mean the side, you know, one of the sides of the lot versus front or back. You'd be amazed sometimes 3 feet, a 3 foot shift can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the last question is, shouldn't the city adopt the new tree ordinance on all their projects? And again, it's really two separate processes. If you're talking about specific city projects that have been planned, designed, and budgeted for, those projects are kind of already in the works and underway. They wouldn't be something that the new tree ordinance would impact. It's the same way that new home construction or even new commercial construction, once it's in kind of that permitting process, you would not, whatever they applied under would be the applicable code at that time. So we don't have the ability to backtrack for a project that is already underway, that had been submitted under a previous code. So again, the same would apply for city projects. Once they are designed and budgeted and underway, they're kind of already in process, and the city would typically not go back and make significant modifications. So again, if you have questions or comments about projects that are underway, you can and speak with the department that is responsible for that particular project, or you can reach out to your city council person to provide additional input. So that is all of the questions that we have on Facebook, and I don't see anything else in Zoom. So we just want to thank everyone for attending this meeting today. Again, we'll have the same exact meeting this evening at 6 p.m. If you have the ability to attend or would like to provide additional comments, you can attend that meeting or visit the project website or email the group at trees@brookhavenga.gov. Again, thank you for attending, and we look forward to working with you on this project.